Welcome to the Kerri Lane Show. I'm Kerri Lane. It was like a chapter straight out of the book, He's Just Not That Into You. President Trump sitting down with Canada's new Prime Minister and things got a little awkward. Plus, a major announcement on the Middle East and a new Supreme Court victory this afternoon for the Trump administration. Finally, an update on the latest drama surrounding the deportations of illegal migrants. Let's kick things off today with the Oval Office meeting between President Trump and Prime Minister Carney. Now, things got a little uncomfortable when a reporter asked whether Canada would become America's 51st state. Trump leaned in hard, as we would expect, suggesting that it could mean massive tax cuts for the Canadians, free military protection, and tremendous health care. So far, so good? Then came this.
You know, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said, that's the way it was meant to be. But, you know, it's, I do feel it's much better for Canada, but we're not going to be discussing that unless somebody wants to discuss it. I think that there are tremendous benefits to the Canadian citizens, tremendously lower taxes, free military, which honestly we give you essentially anyway, because we're protecting Canada if you ever had a problem. But I think it would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places that get along very well. They like each other a lot.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, you know, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. And we have done that in the past. And part of that, as the president just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government is committed for a step change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership, and I'll say this as well, that the president has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us playing our full weight in NATO, and that will be part of it.
True.
The Prime Minister's facial expressions had me extremely uncomfortable when I watched that. But I mean, he held his ground, he responded diplomatically, although sadly, the topic didn't die there because the media, they just couldn't let it go.
When you consider what Mr. Carney just said, that Canada is not for sale, does this make the discussion a little more difficult to start on?
No, not at all. No, not at all. No, time will tell. It's only time. But I say, never say never. I've had many, many things that were not doable, and they ended up being doable, and only doable in a very friendly way. But if it's to everybody's benefit, you know, Canada loves us and we love Canada. That's, I think, the number one thing that's important. But we'll see. I mean, over time, we'll see what happens.
I'm not sure this kind of banter is what you want before critical trade negotiations. I know many of you watching, you support President Trump and his policies, as do I. But I'm curious to see if you thought this line of commentary was necessary. Was this a misstep for the president or just Trump being Trump? Drop your thoughts for me below. As always, I try and respond to everyone. Also, if you're finding value in the show, please hit that like button. Every click helps grow our community. Okay, back to business. When it came to trade, both leaders made their cases in front of the cameras.
We are the largest client of the United States in the totality of all the goods. So we are the largest client of the United States. We have a tremendous auto sector between the two of us, and the changes that made have been helpful. 50% of a car that comes from Canada is American. That's not like anywhere else in the world. And to your question about is there one thing? No, this is a bigger discussion. There are much bigger forces involved, and this will take some time and some discussion.
See, the conflict is, and this is very friendly. We're not. This is not going to be like we had another little blow up with somebody else. That was a much different. This is a very friendly conversation. But we want to make our own cars. We don't really want cars from Canada, and we put tariffs on cars from Canada. And at a certain point, it won't make economic sense for Canada to build those cars. And we don't want steel from Canada because we're making our own steel, and we're having massive steel plants being built right now as we speak. We really don't want Canadian steel, and we don't want Canadian aluminum and various other things. because we want to be able to do it ourselves. And we, because of, past thinking of people, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. In other words, they have a surplus with us. And there's no reason for us to be subsidizing Canada.
The tone may have been civil, but the disagreement was clear. Trump wants economic independence, and Carney wants continued trade reliance because his country is the one that's benefiting the most from this. We all know relationships are messy, especially when one person wants to make it work more than the other. I will continue to follow this. We'll see how these talks move forward. Another headline from today's meeting, Trump's announcement on the Houthis. Watch this.
We had some very good news last night. The Houthis have announced that they are not, or they've announced to us at least, that they don't want to fight anymore. They just don't want to fight. And we will honor that. And we will stop the bombings. And they have capitulated. But more importantly, we will take their word. They say they will not be blowing up ships anymore.
This is huge because think about it. The Houthis have been targeting our military for the past several years. In fact, under Biden and then Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, there were 174 direct strikes on U.S. troops, which had these ramifications.
U.S. defense officials now reporting at least 45 U.S. service members may have been injured in drone and rocket attacks on bases in Iraq and Syria. It's nearly double the original number, and we're now hearing some of them may have been seriously hurt.
And let's not forget, the Pentagon originally underreported the injuries. It took public pressure to admit that 109 troops suffered traumatic brain injuries. And those attacks went mostly unanswered. Then in walks President Trump. And within just 100 days, the Houthis are backing off. That's what real leadership looks like. Speaking of our military, the Supreme Court just handed the Trump administration a temporary green light to enforce its transgender military service ban while legal challenges continue to play out. Now, the decision effectively reverses an activist judge's prior halt on the administration's plans to eliminate woke policies in the armed forces. This is something both Trump and Pete Hegseth have been very vocal about. Meanwhile, the president is also promising even more good news.
We're going to have a very, very big announcement to make, like as big as it gets, and I won't tell you on what, but it's going to, and it's very positive. I'd tell you if it was negative or positive. I can't keep that out. It is really, really positive. And that announcement will be made either Thursday or Friday or Monday before we leave. But it'll be one of the most important announcements that have been made in many years about a certain subject.
So I'll be watching for that to come down. But while we're talking about security, let's talk about the disaster at home caused by Biden's border failures, because not only has it put everyday Americans at risk, it's also created a more dangerous environment for our law enforcement. On Friday, 5 corrections officers were attacked, 3 of them stabbed, by MS-13 gang members who are inmates at Wallen State Prison in Virginia. All of whom, by the way, are in the U.S. illegally. These aren't low-level offenders. They're convicted of murder and rape. Now, that same day, children in a gang that's associated with TDA assaulted 2 NYPD officers in Times Square. The footage is wild that you're watching. The cops, they were attacked by the gang when they were trying to stop them from robbing people. Thankfully, none of them were hurt. 5 of the 8 suspects are now in custody, with the youngest, you ready for this? Just 12 years old. He was arrested last year when he was 11 for being the ringleader behind robberies in Central Park. And over in California, 3 violent illegals murdered a man during a home invasion. One of them was protected by sanctuary city policies despite 2 ICE detainers. And yet it's Trump who's criticized for trying to deport these criminals. Here's Stephen Miller on the hypocrisy.
President Trump is the one saving the Constitution by fighting to expel from this country the criminals and illegal aliens who have no right to be here. The constitutional crisis was when President Biden and the Democrats mass imported millions of illegal aliens and gangsters into our country. The Constitution commands and requires the president, under Article 4, Section 4, to end any invasion of this country and to remove from this country as quickly as possible anyone who is here without the permission of the U.S. government.
What's ironic about this is that the left is so up in arms about these deportations, yet they didn't seem to mind when a Democratic president did just the same thing.
Bill Clinton deported 12.1 million during his presidency. 92 to 93% of those people he deported were sent back without a formal proceeding, a.k.a. due process. OK, so look, to what President Trump said, 5 million trials. That's impossible. You can't do it. And the fact that these judges continue to get in the way and try to derail his deportation efforts, it's brutal because, to Caroline's points earlier, the Manhattan Institute estimates an average net fiscal burden of $68,000 per illegal migrant, which actually goes up to $130,000 for those with lower education levels. That is a big drain on society.
These numbers, they're not sustainable. Here's DHS Secretary Kristi Noem on the matter.
The Biden administration perverted every single government program there is in order to facilitate the invasion that happened over our border. They gave them free housing, free food, free child care. They gave them free medical care. They treated them better than they treated American citizens.
And now the Trump team is flipping the script. Illegal immigrants can now register to self-deport via a new CBP app. They'll be given a paid flight home, and they'll also receive $1,000 to help resettle. Now, in return, they will be deprioritized by ICE as a target once they're registered on the app. It'll also give them a chance to possibly come back to the U.S. the right way.
We spend about $17,000 arresting, detaining, and deporting an illegal alien right now today. If we have the opportunity to purchase a plane ticket and send someone home with a stipend like this, it saves us thousands and thousands of dollars. And it also is a much safer situation for officers and for those in communities. And it gives that illegal an opportunity to come back to the United States of America.
So DHS has already tested this out with an illegal immigrant that they flew from Chicago back to Honduras. They say they have other flights planned as well. Now, over at CNN, they thought it would be a really good idea to sit down with a member of the drug cartels. I'm not sure why the left continues to spend so much energy entertaining criminals. Watch this.
According to the Trump administration, you are a terrorist. I mean, the cartels have been labeled a foreign terrorist organization. What do you make of that?
Está fea la situación, ¿verdad? Está fea la situación, pero pues todos tenemos que comer.
What's your message to Donald Trump if he's watching this?
Mis respetos, él tiene que según él buscar lo mejor para los suyos. Pero el detalle que ya están los consumidores, ¿no? Si no hubiera consumidores, pues uno le parara.
Even cartels understand Trump's motives better than our own media. The left just never seems to care about all of the American citizens who have died at the very hands of these people that they're choosing to sit down with. Kristi Noem reacts.
When's the last time that, they actually interviewed a victim? And that's another thing that the Biden administration did is they actually shut down the one office within ICE, within the federal government, that was there to support victims of illegal criminal activity, the Voices office. We just reopened that so that these families, these angel moms, can have a resource to really help them get some comfort, get some information on the crimes that perpetuated against their families. It really is a shame what the Biden administration did to destroy America.
It's not just disgusting at this point, it's deliberate, right? They ignore angel moms, they silence survivors, and they elevate criminals. Also, they can manipulate the public into believing Americans will be abducted and deported, and that no one will have due process as long as Republicans are in charge.
The Democrats are using fear to control people. They're out there motivating people by fear, and they're standing alongside known terrorists in order to endanger our futures.
But Americans are waking up. Independent journalists like myself and viewers like you, we are pushing back. Now, Trump's media clash with NBC's Kristen Welker is a perfect example of that. And I break down the contentious and very dishonest interview in my next video. Plus, I've got explosive new details on government waste, like your tax dollars funding lavish parties at Caesar's Palace and football stadiums. It's wild. Click now, and I hope to see you over there.